Welcome to ETN Community Spotlight, where we shine the light on a local nonprofit organization. I'm Derrick Silas. Join me as we talk to today's special guest. Janet, when most people hear the word Red Cross, they're thinking about blood services or they're thinking about disaster recovery. Give me the history, the mission, and the purpose of Red Cross.
Well, the Red Cross has been mandated by Congress to provide services during particularly problematic times, whether it's a disaster, whether it's blood services, whether it's service to military families, even classes and things to help during problem times. The Red Cross is a international organization, as I'm sure you know, and we do have 5 different purposes. Can't always remember them, so you may have to help me. Service to military families. One of the things that we are mandated by Congress, and by the way, a lot of these mandates are not funded by Congress, so we are funded by donations. So service to military families, that's things like if you have a person in the military that's overseas, that's been deployed, and there is a family emergency, maybe his father is critically ill, or grandma has died, or things like that, then we are mandated and we are very happy to help with making those connections. Verifying that whatever the emergency is, that it truly is going on. Used to be we did this on a local level. Now all of the service to military families the calls are handled actually for the whole nation through one center, and that center is in Lawton. So everything is channeled to them. So we as local people don't have a lot of involvement in that. We teach classes. We teach CPR, first aid. We're not doing as many of the classes as we used to, but we are still very involved in CPR and swimming and lifeguarding and things like that. Probably the one that people would be the most familiar with locally, or the two, are disaster services. And on a local level, we have what we call the Disaster Action Team. And we always need volunteers for that. And it's not a real time-consuming volunteer job, but it is a volunteer job. And what you do is, if there's a fire, for instance, there's been a fire in town, and usually the fire department, sometimes it's the client, sometimes it's a neighbor, notifies us. And we go out, and the Red Cross is providing immediate service, providing right now. What do you need right now? It doesn't matter if you have insurance or anything. What is it you need right now? What would you need if you had a fire and lost your house? You'd need clothing, you'd need food, and you might need a place to stay. Now, usually in rural Oklahoma, we don't have as much of that as in some of the bigger cities, because we've got relatives around. We can find someone to go stay with. But if you're new in town or you don't have a lot of connections, you may not have that. So what we do is we go out as a team, there's a couple of us, and we talk with that family. We talk with what their needs are right now. Right now I need a place to stay, okay? We have a reloadable credit card we give them. We put money on that for a couple of nights lodging, for some food and clothing for them. That gets them through that initial time. Then part of our purpose is to work through, okay, let's think about what's going to happen long term. Okay, let's get you into recovery. Let's start thinking about, let's get you referred to some services that might be able to help. Do you have insurance? Have you contacted all these people that you need to contact? Have you talked to your boss? Have you, things, if you're renting, have you talked to the landlord? So we kind of guide them through that. I actually play a role statewide too. I'm the Disaster Health Services State Nurse Lead in Oklahoma. And one of the things that happens from my position is, if there's a fire in Oklahoma City, say, and that team from there responds. But if there's a medical need, maybe they lost medicine in the fire, they lost equipment, they lost their CPAP, whatever, then at that point in time they contact health services. So we help them go through that. Because, you know, when you've had a trauma like losing a house, and if you lose your pet, think about that. A lot of times we will involve mental health in that. So that's kind of what I do statewide.
I started out as a DAT responder, which is a disaster action team, and so I mainly wanted to respond to disasters. But right now I do a little bit of everything. I do disasters, I do casework. Casework's where they had a fire or something like that. We get the information from the families that was affected by the disaster or the fire, and we send all that information in on the computers.
The other things that we do is disaster services in general. And I don't know that a lot of people know, but we in Oklahoma have more disasters than any place in the state. I mean, in the nation. All of my friends from National Red Cross will say, we know Oklahoma because they've all been here at one time or another, whether it's a Moore tornado, whether it was, you know, the Murrah bombing, whatever. We've had a lot of ones just in the past couple of years. So we help with ongoing issues too. Like, let's say they were renting a house and they're kind of starting to get on the road to recovery. Well, then we will maybe help them with a deposit or something that they can. We can't be, a lot of times people don't understand, we can't really be all things to all people. But we do try to be there right at the beginning, both in a disaster and in a single family fire, as we call it. And we do have some shelters set up around Enid that would, in the case of a major disaster, we would be able to utilize. We have agreements with different people. So a lot of times we do canteening. That's what we've done at the fires. A lot of times we'll take either our Red Cross car or our big van, and we'll load up with Gatorade and water and snacks, and we'll drive around. You know, you drive through the neighborhoods, drive through to the emergency responders and hand them water and Gatorade.
Now, you were mentioning disaster services.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very familiar with that. I'm a former resident of Mississippi, and
oh boy. Mm-hmm.
Red Cross came to our help when we had Hurricane Katrina.
Yes.
And my family was involved in that, and they helped a lot. So,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So
I worked the Red Cross offices down in Oklahoma City when they brought the bus loads up from Houston,
mm-hmm.
and that was. So I had a little taste of it, but not a lot. You mentioned your connection with Red Cross, and I always have to, when I talk about Red Cross, I have to talk a little bit historically about my connection. My mother was a Red Cross Army nurse in World War II, and my dad survived the Bataan Death March, and so they met at Fort Sam Houston after the war. And Mother had been involved with the Red Cross, and she moved out to the northwest part of Oklahoma and in a small town, and didn't really think that she would be able to use her Red Cross skills a lot. But she ended up teaching Red Cross swimming and lifeguarding, so she was able to utilize some of her skills there. And anyway, so I have a long connection with Red Cross. So I've been in and out of of the field with them.
Very good. And you mentioned some of the other ones, the service to the armed services. What other volunteer and youth services do you provide? Youth
service-wise, we again, swimming, lifeguarding, things like that. Right now we've got a couple of projects going locally. One for the youth, which is called the Pillowcase Project. And the Pillowcase Project is we're partnering with Vance Air Force Base and some of the pilots, and they go out to the schools. And I think it's 3rd and 4th grades. And they've done almost all the schools in Garfield County. And they were also partnering with Disney. And Disney provides a pillowcase with a drawing on it. And then we put markers and different things in it. And every child gets one. And the pilots take it out to the classroom, talk to the students about fire safety. And then they get to color it and get to take it home. And I have to, again, share an anecdotal thing here. My grandson, I happened to pick him up at school a couple of years ago, the day that they'd done the Pillowcase Project at his school. And my grandson wants to be in the military anyway. Well, they came with their uniforms on and they did the pillowcase project. So he was very impressed with that. But then his mother told me that night he was going around looking for bottled water. And she said, well, what do you need bottled water for? Well, that's one of the things we put in the pillowcase. They put a bottle of water, a flashlight, something. And then they're encouraged to put it under their bed so that in the event of a fire, they can take it and go. But he was looking around for more water, and his mother said, well, you have a bottle of water in there. And he said, yes, but Mother, there are 4 people in the house. So he was wanting to provide for everybody else too. So that's been a great partnership. Good for them, good for us. The other thing is the smoke alarms.
Well, basically what we do on smoke alarms, we get a group of families together, like sometimes we contact the fire department and find out if there's families in need, or we go around neighborhoods, door to door, and what we do is hand out, ask them if they need smoke detectors in their homes, and we install them for free.
We go out to, if a youth group calls us about doing basic first aid, things like that, we will do that. We also go and provide comfort stations at a lot of the area events. We'll have water and coffee and things like that for people at the different events.
Okay. Can you tell me how you feel the organization has impacted the Enid community?
Well, it's been difficult the past few years because National, and I won't go into that history, but National downsized everybody a few years ago, not just us. And with that downsizing, that resulted in our major office for all of Northwest Oklahoma being in Stillwater instead of Enid. So a lot of people have perceived that we are no longer here and present in the community. So we're trying very hard to make our presence known. When we had to sell our building then this past year over on East Elm, everybody thought we were really gone. So, it was such a blessing that Dr. David Van Hooser volunteered to let us have this office free of charge, and that's been a blessing for us. So now we're working very hard to build up the image again and let people know we're here.
Okay. So how is the organization here, Cimarron Valley, primarily funded?
Private donations. Some of the things we get reimbursed for by National, like if we were to have a major disaster, we would get some funding from National, but things like single family fires, they're funded strictly by donations within the local area.
Okay. So if there's a person out there that would want to volunteer services or donate or just help in any kind of way, how can they go about doing it? What is your location and how can they go about doing it?
We are in the Parkview Medical Building, which is across the street west from St. Mary's Hospital, Suite 100. If you come in from the east door, we're the first door on the left. We don't have somebody here all the time. We are in the process of getting someone under some special programs and getting more volunteers. We really have because of the chaos locally in the past few years, our volunteer base is very, very low right now. We need people to answer the phone in the office. We need people to be on the DAT team so that they can go out. What happens is if there is a fire, then we will put the alert out. So it's not like you have to go every time. You can respond or you cannot respond, whichever you want to do.
Go on to Volunteer Connections on the internet and you can sign up on Volunteer Connections.
Is there an age limit or on volunteer services?
Actually,
what age can you
13
be in?
and above.
Okay.
And certainly we encourage, I know that over in Stillwater, they've started a youth group. And we went to the Stillwater Parade last year, this past fall, which was the 1-year anniversary of the Stillwater tragedy. And that certainly called us into play during the Stillwater tragedy, the parade. It was a disaster like no other that we've ever witnessed. So,
well, thank you for talking to me today.
Derrick.